Welcome to the MHP Exchange, where the riches are in the niches. We'll show you how to invest your way into mobile home parks with real strategies, tips, and behind-the-scenes know-how to grow your cash flow. Stick around. This is where smart investing begins.
Back on the MHP Exchange podcast, Frank Rizzo here with you today. And we're going to talk about something in real estate, in your real estate operations, and in your real estate business that oftentimes gets overlooked, but is so critical, especially now with everything that's going on. And it's about optics and your narrative and what's essential in terms of building your brand or getting your story out. So today, I have joining us on the program, Matt Bass from Insight Media Solutions. Matt is the brains behind our marketing and digital presence. And we have him as our guest today, and he's going from behind the camera to in front of the camera today. And it's not because we got a discount on producing this episode to have him featured as the guest, but we wanted to bring this point out because brand building is so important, and Matt has been so critical to our operations over the last few years. And Matt, I just wanted to welcome you to the program.
Thank you, Frank, and excited to be in front of the camera. Like Frank said, typically you don't see what we're doing, but behind the scenes, we're trying to balance and make Frank look nice. I know it's tough to do, especially with that shine coming off his head. So we have actually panels above him that are trying to mitigate that. But Frank, thanks for having me. Excited to be on the show and looking to get right into it.
Well, I appreciate you. Other than that one comment, I really do appreciate you being here. And it's important, Matt, because we've talked on a few episodes about how important optics is in your business plan, in your day-to-day operations. But from your perspective, from a marketing perspective, from a branding perspective, how important is it in controlling that narrative or at least having a say in what that narrative is? Like, how important is that?
Sure. I think you have to look at it as, what is your goal, right? Is your goal to reach a larger audience? Is your goal to hone in on your current audience? I think that understanding what the end of the funnel looks like will help you decide on, if getting out there and developing a digital presence is important to you, right? I feel, we work with a lot of different industries, and I know today we want to focus specifically on mobile home operators and the MHP space. But
I think just real estate in general.
Yeah.
Right? Because the industry itself is under a microscope, sure, right? So you hear stories every day of, and it's easy for whether it's on social media because everybody could be almost a citizen journalist, right? Everybody has a camera. Sure. Everybody has a platform to voice their opinions, and it could just be the operator who goes out and has to raise rent because it's part of their business plan, right? And it just doesn't fall because there's now a story to it, right?
Sure.
Do you think that's?
I mean, that's super important. Like you mentioned, controlling the narrative, and I think anybody when it comes to low income housing, has that connotation that they're taking advantage of the residents, and I think through media, you could really highlight the good, right? Like you said, look at in today's news, right? That 20-second clip that we see online doesn't really show the full story, right? So, you'll read the headlines on rents increasing, but you won't know the story that, we just put in a new playground, you just put in new roads, you have, uplifted the spirits of the community. And, luckily we now have that ability to show that, right? And that's the power of controlling your narrative and controlling the media and controlling your own brand. You really get to compete with, let's say, a local news channel now because more people are on social media than they are watching the news, So I think it's super important.
Yeah, and I think documenting the journey along the way. And for myself, I'll say it nicely, at least a generation removed from you. But
I don't know what that means, but
made a little older, right? So I growing up with, in a different time where privacy was something that you expected, and privacy is something that you wanted. It's not comfortable necessarily being out there and saying we're going to document or video or put out information on what we're doing. I mean, I grew up with bars on my window, right, in Brooklyn in mid '80s, where you did that. So that's kind of how you looked at things. We didn't let people know, like friends or relatives, that we were going on vacations. And now the idea of what's out there is a lot different.
Yeah.
But do you think if you're out there and you're buying, whether it's one community or you're buying one project, I mean, do you think there's a value and an importance in documenting that journey along the way?
I definitely do. If going back to what your goals are, right? I mean, there has to be a bunch of players, and you know this better than I do, who are, in the space, who've had success, who you don't hear a peep about, right? Who maybe have a nice portfolio and they just conduct business and they don't get out on social media. But for that person who is looking to grow, expand into new markets, there's a few different avenues you could use social media. I know we've had some success in finding deals, sourcing deals, finding investors, things of that sort through social media channels. So it really goes back to, what are your intentions of using either social media or just having a digital presence, right? So I know you've done a great job, Frank, of building a brand, right? And that leads to you being able to reach a new audience, and people will focus more time on watching your creative content than they would reading your emails, right? And that's something that's super important, because through social media and through consistency with posting, people are in tune with what you're doing, and you might not even have a clue what they're doing, right? And that's super important as well for, nurture.
But from your perspective, and you've been, really focused in on media for a number of years now, but where do you see things that have gone, what's worked well? Like what gets maybe more engagement, more views, and then where do people fail? Like what's the mistake that you think, like the biggest mistake people in, whether it's real estate or another industry, where's because you see a lot that's put out there and some of it is a little cringy.
Yep.
So what do you think the biggest fails are?
Absolutely. So listen, look to why you go to social media, right? You either want to be entertained or you want to be educated, right? You want to hear somebody giving tips and tricks, or you want to watch something that sparks your interest, right? So, understanding before you post something, the why. Why are you posting this? Right? Is it to entertain? Is it to educate? What we see a lot of people fail with, and this is particularly in real estate, and a lot of, we work with a lot of real estate agents, real estate brokers, not necessarily operators. They constantly look to sell, right? Social media could be used as a tool to sell, but if the only content you're posting is you trying to sell, you're never going to get that type of engagement, right? Social media has evolved over time where, one of the most important metrics used to be following count, right? How many people are following you kind of equates to how many people are interested in what you're seeing. But the algorithms have evolved over time to where you need to focus more on engagements, right? Comments, engaging with other brands, other accounts, likes, shares, views, and that will lead to you having more success on social media. One more thing to add is, and this is a method from Alex Hormozi, so this is not something that we invented. Every time we look to post, we want to, add value or give, right? You want to give before you ask. And you see a lot of different realtors or real estate professionals ask before they give anything of value, and they don't have the success, and then they go back to, the social media stuff doesn't work, right? So that's kind of what we see on the social media end.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because you do have those posts from people you know, and they're always pushing this or saying how great, look how great I am. Look at
work with me, but they don't give you why.
Correct.
Why should I work with you? What have you done? Tell the story, right? Because, we just had a meeting yesterday where we met with a company, and, they were running targeted ads, right? So these are to targeted individuals that look up a specific interest. When we tell our clients, hey, tell the story, right? Because let's say, for example, in real estate, you help that single mother go from an apartment to finally buying a house. She was getting the runaround. You helped her with creating a plan over time. The plan was executed. Telling that story is more powerful than just posting a picture of a house and saying, just sold, right? Because as a viewer, if I was that single mother and I saw, hey, this agent helped somebody who was in sort of my shoes, I'd be more prone to want to reach out to them and connect with them because, I'm their target, right? Whereas just posting just listed, just sold, kind of just looks like you're looking at it as a transaction and not really valuable.
Yeah, I think especially in this, so from a sales background, right?
Yeah.
You were always taught, or people always were taught, like you want people to like you, right? And number one, and then you want people to think that you've been, uber successful on it. But I think that's taken in the wrong context, right? You want to be, yes, you don't want people not to like you, but you don't have to be everyone's best friends, but they've got to respect the fact that you know what you're doing. Number one, I think
one thing I just want to touch when you say you don't want people not to like you, in social media space, hate is good. Hate leads to engagement depending on what you're going. And Reggie Jackson once said, when they asked him about how do you deal with the boos in New York,
you don't hear them.
He goes, they don't boo nobodies, right? So the fact that somebody is booing means that they care enough to even, engage with you. So sometimes that does work.
It does. You don't have to be the most liked guy.
Yeah.
But they have to respect the fact that you could do that job. And respecting the fact that you could do the job doesn't mean that you've always won on everything. Yeah. Sometimes it means that you might have had some setbacks. I think you like knowing where people have had challenges and how they've overcome that. I think people like that comeback story. So when you just post, hey, look at my win, look at my win, look at my win, it becomes almost unrelatable. Yeah. Because how does that person always win? Because they don't see all the work that's done behind that. And I think that's where you have to be careful in what you push out, because then it becomes almost unrelatable.
Sure.
Right? Because I think everybody, whether you're just beginning or you've achieved, as you hit different levels of success, there's always those roadblocks that you have to overcome, those challenges that you need to get past. And I think that's the story where people get a little bit more engaged, like, hey, how did you do that? And maybe there's something I can pull from there. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the, let me put out the glossy photos and look at the big win and the deal closing. Like that's.
Yeah, it looks almost.
Let me pound my chest.
It looks almost scripted, and sometimes, people who are polished and scripted don't really have that success, and they might look at it as, hey, how can I have the most expensive or creative videos, photos, and not complete or capture what we're looking to do as far as our goals. And it's because you don't have that authentic feel, like you're saying, where you show the ups and downs, or you show the behind the scenes, the process. That's what people are interested in, but kind of just shifting gears back to the MHP space, right? How have you seen operators leverage social media in today's society?
Well, I think there's a number of people who put out some really great podcasts on social media where it really it's shown the industry in a different light and helped bring other people into the space, right? So when you start to see that, and you have people who want to find out more information about mobile home park investing, or what it is, what's the dynamics of owning a mobile home park or manufactured housing community, I think that becomes a great source, because it's definitely opened people's eyes, ears, and minds to kind of looking at a mobile home park as an investment vehicle, and maybe this is something I need to have some capital allocated towards, right? This is affordable housing. This is a niche space. This is why I need to be there. So I think that's been incredibly helpful, I think, to opening up this space to a lot more people, because 10 years ago, there was few people, and if you mentioned you were going to invest in a mobile home park, people looked at you in a funny way. Today, it's a lot more accepted. You have private equity firms looking to get in there, deploying capital in there. So now it's not become such a under the radar movement, but it's become something it's definitely not mainstream, but it's definitely picking up steam. So I think that's been super helpful. I think having, you could check online. There is a stigma with a mobile home park. Let's call it what it is. I mean, I think there's initially a stigma when people hear the term mobile home park, or what their thought was, or their preconceived, notions. And I think some of the content that we've seen out there kind of shed some light on what's really happening on the ground and how people are looking to go out there and improve communities. And guys that have done really well at sharing that. I mean, whether it's, Andrew Keel, Derek Vickers, Mario Datillo, they've gone out there and they've kind of shined the light on the industry in a different way. And I think that's been helpful for the asset class, and it's helpful for investors to find the space, but definitely helpful for the asset class kind of.
Are you nervous that putting yourself out there and giving away some of the secret recipe is going to lead to more competition in the space? Have you seen that so far? I mean, I know you've been at the social media stuff for, I'd say, consistently for the last 2-3 years. I would say 3 years consistent with Trailer Park Turnaround and some of the other avenues that you've developed. Do you feel that, hey, if I give away this tip, that somebody could use that, or you think that's not practical?
So, Elon Musk had an interesting quote on something similar to that, and he said, well, what's their pain threshold, right? So, yeah, you could see us do that. Yeah. And the idea we want to show people is like, hey, this is what we've done to make things work. And if it helps somebody, or it shows them a pathway forward, fantastic. I mean, I'm somebody who believes there's enough opportunity out there for other people to come in. Okay. And if other people come in and start doing things similarly, well, then it's my job to raise my game even further. So, having that come in, I believe iron sharpens iron. More competition that comes in this place means that you have to refine your process. You have to make sure you're coming up with, innovative ways to keep moving your business plan forward, and creating value, right, on the ground. So, there's obviously more people coming in. There is more competition, which definitely changes the fundamentals on the ground, because more capital changes price points. But I also think that it's just going to force those who are relentless in the space to elevate their game even further. And so if that's the end result, then that's what we have to do. We're forced to elevate our games and be one step ahead, and just keep moving to where we can find and create more value.
Got it. So, given that you're not willing, or given that you're willing to give away some of the secret sauce, I know you have a couple different avenues, right, with the show, investment.
But I will say this, right? I say, well, I'm giving away this. There's a lot of people who've spoken with me along the way, and they've shared it as well. So, and I think by everybody sharing, the operators sharing that information together, that exchange of information makes everybody better, right? Sure, yeah. So if you have a way where, you've been able to either infill your community faster, or you figured out a way where you could drive more value to the community by saving some expenses on one side. Those are things where if you share with other operators, I mean, it makes everybody better. Yeah, so I'm not, there's other people in the space that have shared their wisdom and knowledge with me, and it's been extremely helpful in my career, and I'm looking to pay it forward.
Yeah. So with that being said, you mentioned a few different gentlemen who have, created a lane with the social media. For someone who might be listening to this podcast who are looking for more resources, what are some channels that you would recommend, websites, things of that sort to them to learn more about the space?
So I would without a doubt tell them to go to the mhpexchange.com. I think we have a good balance of information of things that are happening timely in the space on a regular basis, so people could be up to date on news and current events. You could go to MH University, right, which they always have good forums and they always have good information that's coming out there to stay relevant in terms of the space. There's a host of podcasts out there right now that you could find out some more information on mobile home park investing or strategies there. You know, there's a few guys out there that are doing that. I would say listen to those podcasts and try to get that as much information as possibly can. And then if you have somebody out there that you see on LinkedIn or you see on social media, don't be scared to reach out. I mean, I've made plenty of, I will say, quasi cold calls of people who, you know, we kind of known and said, hey, I'm operating in this area. I know that you're in this area. Anything I need to know, and, you know, and share that information. And I found by far and large, especially in this space, a little bit more, and I've been in real estate for 25 years on other asset classes, but in this space, by far and large, the operators have been more than willing to pick up the phone, kind of share some of the best practices or share resources and things that they had. And I think that's really critical, especially if you're starting out.
Sweet. You know, I know we're through month one of 2026. What are some of your goals for 2026 as far as just focusing on social media and a digital presence? Have you set some goals that you want to hit? I know we've picked up some traction with Trailer Park Turnaround, and I think the goal is to be a little bit more consistent with that, right? What are some of your goals on social media for this year? Have you thought about that?
So Matt's done this. He's tried to turn around this podcast, asking questions back and forth, and I like that. Listen, every year we sit down, and Matt, we've sat down and outlined what we need to do to make sure that there's consistent messaging across the board, and like you've stated to me, and you've kind of, you know, ingrained this in me. There's different platforms that you use for different reasons, right? So this business, you know, I happen to have grown up on talk radio. So this platform,
I must say you do have a face for radio.
Thank you, Matt.
That makes sense.
I've been told that by more than one person. But on this platform, I like because I like the conversational piece. I'm used to, you know, I built my business on the telephone, so this is very similar. It's just a conversation. But on the visual piece, it's important because some people are consuming it, whether it's through Reels or YouTube, and that will share a story, right? And I think that's one thing that we want to make sure that we're getting out, that the documentation of the work that's being done, because if it's easy for people to, and just in real estate in general, it's easy for people to showcase the wins. They don't document the work along the way. And I think that narrative along the way shows what it's really like on the ground. Sure. So maybe that gets some people saying, hey, I don't want to do this because I don't want to get my hands that dirty, and that's fine. Or maybe they say, I want to do this, but I don't want to be as actively involved. Or maybe this shows people like, wow, this is what it really takes. Yeah. And if you could educate people there and they realize, I mean, life is not an HGTV show. In 30 minutes, you're flipping a house. There's real work that has to get done. And this is what it takes. There's real people's lives that you're interacting with. And then they could see some of the things that operators do on the ground to make that end product work. And I think that's so super critical.
Yeah. So that's the goal, to highlight more on the ground work. And
listen, I think that's where the education piece, that's where we're learning every day. Yeah. Right. And so every time we go down, you try to figure out ways that you can make things better along with that business plan. And then, you know, I'll ask you that same thing. Like, where do you see, you know, how you're building brands, how that's going to change in this landscape? How does AI impact what you're doing and how you're putting out more content? Because for me, I feel like I could read somebody's post and say, oh, that's complete AI generation.
Yeah. I mean, AI is constantly evolving, and, you know, there's no telling where it's going to go. So as, you know, one of the leaders of the company, you know, it's super important to dedicate time to learn, right? Because I feel as though sometimes the team is looking to carry out deliverables, and there's not enough time spent to learn these tools, right? So what's relevant today might not be relevant tomorrow with these different AI softwares, right? So I know, we've spoke about this a million times, and just, how do you keep sharpening the sword? And that's something that, we're really focusing on, is how can we catch the next trend before the rest of the pack hops on it,
But, and I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to ask you, because I know we've had conversations on how you're implementing or using AI to create some more efficiencies there. But, I feel that when you look at certain content that's out there, or certain marketing pieces, whether it's for an individual marketing pieces, like down on the ground, here's what I'm offering for sale, listing, home, whatever the case may be, or here's my posts generated, you could almost tell the difference
Yeah, of course.
of what someone really said
Yeah.
and what is being written or
Yeah.
generated. And do you think that has an impact? So do you think that has an impact on the brand? So are people doing this and just saying, all right, I'm going to do this because look at this.
The problem becomes, right, and that's a great point. When it comes to social media, especially with short form video clips, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds, right? If someone like yourself, who could talk forever, wanted to be impactful and effective using short form video clips, you'd be past 1 minute and 30 seconds before you stopped your introduction, right? So, we like to stress to our clients that you don't have to be scripted. However, you have to be structured, right? So, when it comes to running targeted advertisements, there has to be a structure, right? There has to be a hook, there has to be a pain point, there has to be an offer, and then a call to action, right? The words could come out freely and not be scripted, but there has to be structure. And same thing with any sort of video, right? You have to look at it as, what's the purpose of this video? And then work your way backwards, right? So, you could definitely tell when somebody's reading a teleprompter and they're, using words, or, what we see a lot is, and excuse my lack of grammar, when people put, what is it, a semi-hyphen, when it's like they're now using that in their write-ups or their Facebook post, and it's like nobody's ever used that in writing a post, but now we see it in every post. Or their post is cluttered with emojis. Like, you could clearly tell that's AI written. Some of the platforms have now started to show, when you post something, AI partnership or AI collaborated or AI I forgot what is the term that they say, AI generated. So the platforms are making people aware now that it's also AI generated.
You think that can negatively impact somebody's brand if everything is, because then it doesn't feel authentic. So I thought the whole idea of what made some of social media marketing so great is that you would see things that were authentic, and then if everything is being generated by AI, then you're kind of taking away that personal touch.
Yeah.
And you got somebody they think this is what I should say, rather than this is what I really mean to get out.
Yeah, I mean, there's not one shoe that fits all. The beauty of social media is that you get feedback right away, right? So if that's something where you're posting AI-generated content and you're not getting the results you want, you have to evaluate that, right? And I think a lot of what we do is we take a look into what's working and what's not working, right? And for some people, AI-generated clips are working. I mean, a little bit off topic, but they're now creating AI-generated models who are generating hundreds of thousands of millions of views, and they're monetizing TikTok and Instagram, and that works for them, right? I know if I put myself on camera and showed myself in that light, I don't think I would get that much views or traction or be able to monetize it. So that works for them. So it really depends on, back to what I say, what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve here, right? If you're trying to develop meaningful relationships and connections, probably not going to move with AI videos, right? But for some people, it works.
Yeah. So as Gary Vee said, 20% of what you do, 20% of your business is content creation. Like, you are, whatever business you're in, if you're in business now,
Yeah.
you're in the content creation business, and you've got to get that out. Matt, you've done. We appreciate the work that you've done. Oh, wow, that was on. So Matt, we've appreciated the work that you've done in getting the MHP Exchange podcast out there, which has been growing. In the last year, grew. The numbers were fantastic and exceeded expectations, and where we're planning to go in 2026. What you've done with Trailer Park Turnaround to help push that forward, and we're expecting to see more this year. But if somebody wants to talk with you for a consultation to talk about their social media presence, whether it's an operator, an agent, or someone who has another business, like, where would they reach you?
Yeah, of course. So, easiest place to stay in touch with people. It's funny because we go to a lot of networking events, and people ask for business cards. I mean, when was the last time you took a business card and you put that information on a business card in your phone? When was the last time? You've done that?
No.
So we like to tell everyone, connect with us on social media. If you'd like to see our work, you could go to Insight Solutions Media on Instagram or Facebook. If you want to connect with me personally, you could follow The Real Matt Bass on Instagram or Matt Bass on Facebook. Feel free to reach out, ask any questions. What we like to offer to any brand, we'll conduct a digital audit. We'll take a look at, where you appear on searches, right? On Google, what are you now posting on social media? We'll take a review into that and see how you could optimize. And you could definitely reach out and ask away. Give before we ask. So we're full of value add.
Well, Matt, I appreciate you joining us today on the MHP Exchange podcast. And I'm going to ask everyone listening, whether on whatever streaming device you're on, I'm going to ask you one question. If you had the opportunity to help somebody you didn't know find, fund, or operate their next real estate investment, would you help them? And if the answer is yes, then on the streaming device that you're listening, give us a rating and share that rating with the MHPExchange.com. And for doing so, I'm going to give you a free copy of the unique method that we use in our sales process. It's a 7-step process, walks you through what we do. And if that should help you in your sales and infill, we're happy to do that. Until next time, everyone, this is Frank Rizzo on the MHP Exchange. Happy investing.
Boom.